So now the question is, how are you, the generic, you, not just you, Angelique, but the generic, how are you contributing to this world? Are you contributing with love and kindness and compassion and forgiveness and gratitude? Or are you contributing to the toxicity of this world?
My guest today is Dr. Elia Gourgouris, also known as America's Happiness Doctor. He's the #1 best-selling author of 7 Paths to Lasting Happiness, co-author of 7 Keys to Navigating a Crisis, president and co-founder of the Kindness Factor International, and producer of the documentary For Such a Time as This on the global impact of kindness. A former clinical psychologist turned executive coach to C-suite leaders, international keynote speaker, and now ambassador to Greece for Kindness Worldwide, Dr. Elia has helped thousands of people build resilience, happiness, and lasting success. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Call Cut with Angelique. I'm Angelique, and today I have an incredible friend here with me. This is Dr. Elia, and kindness is not even the word. This guy is all over the place. He is a best-selling author. He is a thought leader on the kindness movement. He is an ambassador to Kindness Worldwide, which is where we actually met. He's got his own show. He's got his own podcast. He's been in over 400 interviews. This is a man who is out there in the world bringing light, bringing happiness, bringing kindness to everyone that he meets. Dr. Elia, thank you for being on Call Cut with Angelique.
It's my pleasure. Just like it was having on my show, The Happy Hour with Dr. Elia, I'm so glad to be on your show today.
Yeah, no, this is a full circle moment.
Indeed.
So let's get right into it, because you've been doing a lot of stuff. You've been producing a film. You've been traveling the world. I think it would be nice for you to tell us a little bit about yourself so the audience can hear in your words.
Well, kindness and happiness. So I'm known as America's Happiness Doctor. So but I think kindness and happiness, you cannot have one without the other. So let's start with the happiness part, because the happiness started first and the kindness is kind of like the second. However, my very first life lesson, we can start with that. I'm like 4 or 5 years old. This is in Athens, Greece, where I was born and grew up before we moved to the United States. And I'm sitting on my grandfather's lap. His name was Elia, so the name that I have, and I honor him, and I've carried it with pride all these years. And he passed away maybe within a year of that, so I don't have a lot of memories of him. Maybe I was 5 years old when he passed away, but this happened right before that. And he was all I can remember it was how I felt being in his presence. He was gentle, loving, kind. And one day I'm sitting on his lap and he says, "My boy, do you want to know a secret?" And I'm like, "Yes, Grandpa." And then he says to me, "Do you want to be the richest man in the world?" I'm like, I got like Bugs Bunny ears. I'm like, "Yes, Grandpa." He goes, "My boy, if you want to be the richest man in the world, do something good for somebody else every day of your life, and you will be the richest man in the world." And simple message. And somehow my 4 or 5 year little brain, which is still being developed, was like, okay, do something good for somebody else. I'll be the richest man in the world. Obviously, at the time, I thought the richest man in the world meant, Pirates of the Caribbean, like loot, gold and silver. That's my reference as a kid, right?
Yeah.
But as I grew older and I began to implement what he had said, which I've done for over 50 years now on a daily basis, and it's so easy too, he's totally right. That sage advice, before he passed away, it's like the biggest gift he could have given me, because kindness has become, and mind you, not random acts of kindness. I don't even believe in that. Mindful, consistent, deliberate, conscious acts of kindness is a game changer for anybody's life. As a matter of fact, I don't get down to very often. You know me, I'm pretty on the happy side for the most part. But when I do, the quickest way for me to snap out of it is to go and do something for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow it gets me out of my, poor whatever, is happening with me. I may not even be excited about going and doing something for initially going out, but I can tell you on the way back, after that act of kindness or whatever, I feel like a different person. So, yeah, I think that my first life lesson, and so powerful and so simple and so doable, more importantly.
Well, that's usually the trick, or the paradox, if you will, is that most of these things are simple. They're not difficult at all. As a matter of fact, service to others is the pathway to happiness. It's the pathway to joy. And I believe true wealth comes from being able to really see another human being and let them know that they're seen, heard, and loved, regardless of whether you know them, you don't know them. In some ways, we're all passing each other in the night.
And we're also, like Ram Dass once said, we're all walking each other home, which is that beautiful. Yeah, it's one of my favorite quotes because it's so simple. It's like, holding hands and just walking our way back to our, to the home that we came from. As a spiritual person, I believe like we're here for a very short time, honestly. And we are not physical beings having a spiritual experience once in a blue moon. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience for 20, 30, 50, 80 years. So that to me, that's a big picture kind of perspective, and not to lose sight of that. And that the only thing we take with us are our experiences and the way we treat other people. That's it.
Yeah, and this is something that's becoming more important now because the world becomes more divided, the world becomes more upset, angry. So things like happiness and kindness are super important, and treating other people with the golden rule, which is interestingly enough found in every religion. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. Again, simple, but not always executable by some. It's almost like there's a little hand-holding that needs to happen because people are either afraid or they've been conditioned to be sad. I don't believe human beings are born sad or depressed or angry. We become that over time. And we see that with children that are usually happy and joyful and they love to play. Over time, you start to see as life gets in the way and these different kinds of programmings come in that people start to dim their light. So as the happiness doctor,
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that journey and how you became the happiness doctor. And obviously you have a fabulous book that's, you're a best-selling author. It's been translated into several languages. So give our audience a little bit of insight into that.
The happiness brand started the day I was born. And I know that may sound like that's a ridiculous statement, but listen to this story. So I was born a very long time ago in Athens, Greece. Back in the day, they didn't have any like videos or like Facebook Live or like there were no cameras, and they were just, my mom and the OBGYN, right? So as the story was told, I was growing up, my dad shows up at the hospital, and I guess there were 5 babies, myself included, behind a little window. We're all wrapped back in the day in the same old, white generic blanket. So we all looked the same kind of. So my dad was kind of like, a tough Greek guy, drinking, smoking and all that stuff. He comes off the window, goes to the nurse, which one's my son? And I guess at that point I had a smile on my face. So the nurse turns to my dad and says, your son, he's the happy one. So now I'm raised in a home and a family where that's actually, as I have early memory, like, well, you've always been happy. You came out of the womb happy. And therefore, that's my brand. That's how I grew up. Now, fast forward 25 years. Now I'm in graduate school getting my PhD in psychology. And the professor I remember this like it was yesterday, Angelique. He's teaching us what makes us who we are as human beings. Is it nature or nurture? In other words, is it our genetic predisposition to be a certain way, or is it the environment? The truth, of course, is that both contribute. And I had this strange thought in class, and I'm like, wait a minute. What if my dad had shown up like 15 minutes late for whatever reason? He gets caught in traffic, shows up, same window, same questions. And at that point, I'm screaming my head off. And the nurse turns to my dad and goes, your son, he's the cranky one. But listen to this. So now I'm raised in well, you came out of the womb cranky, you miserable little beep, So here's the thing, how it applies to you, to me, and to the rest of your audience. We have all been branded early on in our lives, typically in our homes, but sometimes in our environment. It could be at school, it could be at a playground, whatever. Some personal brands are awesome. Obviously, the happy one is close to the top of the list, but there are other ones. The princess, the beautiful one, the creative one, the artistic one, the athletic one, the smart one, whatever. If you've been branded any of those brands, count your blessings, because those are wonderful brands. However, In my experience, and having worked literally with hundreds of thousands of people, first as a clinical psychologist in private practice, and then as a coach and as a speaker and so on, I'm here to tell you that most people, unfortunately, have not had those brands. And I will tell you the three most common awful brands. And you might say, who would ever say that to their kid? Believe me, the ugly one, the stupid one, or the fat one. These are three brands that I've heard over and over again, especially amongst girls and women. Not that guys haven't had that. So fast forward, the book comes out, and I'm sharing this. I'm in North Carolina. At a women's conference, 500 women and me, and I'm sharing this story about what is your brand, with the call to action, of course, to be listen. If you don't like your brand, today's the day to perhaps make a conscious decision to abandon that awful brand that you were given, years and decades ago, and choose a new brand for yourself. That's the call to action, right? As I'm giving this talk, this elderly lady stands up and starts waving her arms, gray hair and all that stuff. And it's distracting because they're looking at her, they're looking at me, and it kind of threw me off, right? Because I'm used to doing my thing in my talk. So I couldn't ignore her because she was clearly seeking some attention. So I stopped my talk. I was kind of awkward. And I'm like, yes, ma'am. She goes, after listening to you, and after 7 decades, this is really important. She was in her 70s. For 7 decades, I've had the brand. And in her case, she had all three of them. She goes, fat, ugly, stupid, you F and B. Like she had the three and a couple of expletives attached to it. So when she said that, Angelique, you could hear a pin drop in the room because all of a sudden it's like, first of all, I don't think I would have had the courage to say what she did in public. If those were my brands, I would hide in shame, I guess. So I give her a lot of credit for standing up and saying what she said. Of course, the audience is looking at me, and I'm kind of like, it's a little awkward, honestly. And I'm like, well, ma'am, well, what would you like your new brand to be? Now, her name was Leah. She goes, well, from now on, I want to be known as Princess Leia, kind of like Star Wars. At which point, I don't know what got into me. I turned to her and I'm like, yes, Your Majesty. And I bowed to her like this. Everybody cracked up. So this very tense moment became this lighthearted moment. And then I went on with my talk and finished it and so on. Why am I sharing this story? Because if a woman in her 70s, after 7 decades, has had that kind of brand and made a choice, a conscious choice to change her brand, anybody can do it. If she can do it, you can do it, I can do it, anybody else can do it. So the call to action, of course, is number one, be honest with yourself. What was your brand or what is your brand? And if it's a positive one, just count your blessing. You're so lucky. But if it isn't, do not waste another day living life and viewing yourself through those, not rose colored glasses, the opposite, because most brands that happened to us as a kids were other people's projections. They weren't even true. So somebody doesn't feel good about themselves, so they go, well, you're stupid, or well, you're ugly, or you're fat, or whatever. You know what? Those are their projections. But when you're a kid, you do not understand what projections are. So if somebody in a place of authority or your parent or somebody, says that to you, you take it as if it's true. And therefore you begin to live your life and viewing yourself through those lenses. Not true. It's mostly other people's projections. So make a choice today and change the course of your life, because our personal brand has a direct impact on our happiness or, unfortunately, our misery.
It's interesting you say that because I grew up on the negative side. So I'm actually the opposite of you. But my baby was a very happy baby. And I would say that to him all the time. I still say that to him. I was like, you are the one of the most happiest, cheerful little babies I ever saw, which was interesting because I was a melancholic, very sad. I was emotionally abused as a child, and a whole slew of other things. So it was interesting to have given birth to somebody who was, in total opposition to me, at least where I thought I was. But what you said is so interesting. Um, is when you decide that that is not you and that you're not identified by what other people put onto you, that's an incredibly liberating moment. And it is a moment that you need to find within yourself because I realized that it didn't matter when I got older how many people told me the opposite. When you believe it, it becomes part of your identity. And I think that's one of the reasons why I do the call cut method is to stop those negative feedback loops so people can really hear that narrative that they're saying to themselves over and over and over again and change it, because I don't think people realize they have the power to change it.
Most people don't even know that they have that kind of brain. It's almost like second nature. So my question is, number one, is it true? And number two, is it really you? Or was that somebody else? Like, think back and say, where did that start? You know, is it, I'm not going to own somebody else's projections, plain and simple. That's not saying that I'm not going to look at myself and, look at areas that I need to improve and so on. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if this isn't mine, I'm not owning it. That's somebody else's crap, not mine. So, we have free agency. We can choose right now, today, to reject something that isn't ours and to adopt and begin to filter our lives in a very different light. Your son probably won't have to do that because having a happy brain is a pretty good one. Like, he'll keep it.
Yeah.
And the whole goal, of course, is to go through life and continue to expand that, right?
Yeah.
And good for him. That's I'm delighted to hear that your son had that.
Yeah, he's a super happy baby, and I would show him pictures of him. People would come up to me on the street and be like, "Oh my god, that baby," and he'd just, flash a gummy smile, and then when he had teeth, he'd show whatever teeth he had, and he was always like this. Um, I'm grateful, actually, that, I call him my kindness baby. He came out of the part of me that wanted to be that, and I prayed and prayed and prayed when I was pregnant, and all I would do is talk to my stomach and be like, "You are beautiful, kind. You are powerful. You are so happy." I would do this every night religiously, talking to this little
You
baby.
also created an environment for him to grow up where those qualities could actually be amplified, right? So
Yes.
that's why I
Well,
believe it's nature and nurture. He came with his own into this world, and then the environment that you guys created allowed him to grow into, and it will continue to do so because how old is your son? The foundations are there already. How
he's
old is your boy?
9.
He's 9. Yeah, the foundations are
Yeah.
already set. So he's gonna have a great life. Which doesn't mean that we don't face adversity.
Right.
I believe we're all graduates from the University of Adversity. And the older we
Mm.
get, the higher
Yeah.
the degree.
Yeah.
Of course. So, but when you have a find that kind of a foundation, you can navigate the challenges that you face and come out with both growth and learning and introspection. So, yeah, you set some wonderful foundations for him, and his personality came on his own. I think we all have our uniqueness when we come to this world. So either that gets suppressed because the environment is negative, or that gets the exact opposite. It blossoms, and so he's
Yeah.
blossoming because of who you are and how you've raised him.
Well, thank you. And I find that so interesting too, because being someone who is melancholic and having done a lot of this work, I'm still that way. It's just I think about things differently. I see things differently. I choose differently. I don't allow myself to stay in the doldrums. I am stupidly optimistic as well. So even if I get, you know, somebody says, "Oh, you don't have a chance. That's not going to happen," and it's like, yeah, I don't know about that. Let me see. And maybe I'll be down for a minute and then I'm back up. But I do think that sometimes it's the opposite when you've had all of that adversity as a child. You can either become that with which you fight against, or you can, be its opposite.
And you don't come across as someone who's melancholy. So all the interactions I've had with you, I haven't really noticed that. I mean, so it's just what choices you make every day, though, because human beings. This is my psychologist said. When we're facing adversity, there's typically 4 different ways that human beings face adversity. Um, you can say 4 different reactions or 4 different personality types. The first one is the victim. And the victim, of course, is why is this happening to me? Poor me, as if it's only happening to me, not 8 billion other people. That's number one. And of course, when we're in victim mode, we get down and depressed and sad, and we're just like we're struggling. The second one is the critic. So the critic basically blames everybody else for their lot in life. Everybody else. from the president to their boss to their spouse to it doesn't matter. They're always in blame mode. And as a result, they're always frustrated and angry. That's number two. The third one I like to call the observer. The observer is someone who's so overwhelmed by the changes in life and the challenges in life. They're basically the deer with the headlights look. They're frozen in fear. So they're not in the game of life. They're not in the field. They're in the stands, and they just watch life passing them by. They're very passive, and they don't do anything because they're scared to death. And then we get to the navigator, which of course, navigators navigate any challenge with success, with love, with kindness, with passion, with purpose. So, but here's the key, and you mentioned it a little bit. You alluded to it. It's not like, well, you and I are navigators and everybody else is the other three. No, that's not how it works. Every human being has all four of those types inside of themselves.
Yes.
The key to success is, even myself, something happens. If you're going to feel like a victim, do it for half an hour. Don't do it for the rest of your life. Because we all know people that are like victim mode and they stay stuck there. I've gotten mad at the government sometimes, or I'd say, yeah, I get it's normal. But if I stayed mad at somebody else, would we go for the next 6 months? Who am I hurting, them or myself? So if you're going to get mad, which is kind of adrenaline, go exercise, do something, get out of your system, and then pivot and become a navigator. Or, a lot of things are happening. When the pandemic hit, a lot of people, they were like frozen in fear. They didn't know what to do. Number one, you don't want to make decisions based on fear. What's the biggest difference between the navigator and the other three? The other three don't take personal responsibility. It's either poor me, I get mad, or I do nothing because I'm afraid. With a navigator, does several things on a consistent basis. Number one, they practice self-care, and their self-care, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, is a non-negotiable. No matter what's happening, it's like plugging your phone. Their batteries are charged. They not only express gratitude, but they live in a state of gratitude, regardless of the circumstances, which is key. Because when things are going well, it's easy to be grateful. And we also know neuroscience, like physiologically, we cannot be in a grateful state and be depressed simultaneously. Physiologically, that doesn't happen in the brain. If I'm in a grateful state, all those beautiful juices start flowing to your system from the human brain. So you can't be depressed at the same time. The question, of course, is given that we all face adversity, is it possible to be grateful in the midst of adversity? Because I think that's a differentiator. And, one of my role models, I love him, is Nelson Mandela, South African president in prison for almost 30 years, comes out, forgives everybody, remarkably, even though he's in power. He said something so simple and profound that I live my life with that every day. He said, in life, either you win or you learn. Meaning that as long as we're learning something, in actuality, there are no mistakes. In whatever you and I have accomplished in our lives, we have accomplished some things in lives. The greatest lessons have not come from our successes. I guarantee it. Our greatest lessons in life have come from what at the time seemed like a human frailty, a weakness, a so-called mistake, a setback, adversity, whatever. Was it painful going through it? You're darn right it was. But if you learn the lesson, and navigators learn those lessons, the quicker the better. So they shift from the victim mode, which is, why is this happening to me? They shift to go, why is this happening for me? God, universe, whatever. Not to me. To me keeps me victim. For me, curiosity. Why did this happen for me? And when you find that, God answers that question just like that, or the universe, whatever you believe in. And therefore, not only are you not in victim mode, you've actually won something great, a wonderful, wonderful lesson. Because I wouldn't be the person I am today had I not gone through all those tragic, difficult, sometimes dark times in my life, because they've made me who I am today. I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't gone through that. Now, was it easy? Obviously not. Nobody wants that. But if the quicker you can switch to, why is this happening for me, the better your life will be. And navigators are really good at that, and they do it quickly up front.
Yeah. I do believe that the universe is always conspiring in your favor, but you do have to see it that way. And I love that you pointed out these different archetypes because it's really helpful, especially for people to see themselves if they're on that discovery path and to catch it. Because all we have to do is catch it. And the minute we get used to catching ourselves doing something, we can lift out of it again. And that's where I think kindness comes in as well. You said this earlier about whenever you were feeling a little bit in the doldrums, you would just go out and do something nice for somebody, or you would do
Yeah.
something of service, and that would instantly shift your energy and move you back into a state where you were up again. So that, that lead in is, I think, um, something so important because so many people get stuck. They need a tool. They understand, right, conceptually, but they don't know how to execute it. And so these kinds of things, kindness and gratitude, I do believe they are great tools to help people stop themselves and get out of the victim mode and the critic mode, and start moving into, or the observer, and start getting into that navigator mode that you speak about, because that really is the path through. I agree with you. I've had the oh, this is gonna sound bad, but the best thing that ever happened to me was the worst thing that ever happened to
Of
me.
course. I believe that.
Because right? Because everything that I feared actually came true. And so now I fear nothing. And I would not be at this point where I don't fear anything because I would constantly be in that state. But once all of those things happened, you realize, well, hey, I'm still here. The machine's still working. So,
It's that old Elton John song, I'm Still Standing.
yes. Yeah. I do think that, and you can tell me what your thoughts on this, but I do feel that um the trick to this game of life is to get knocked down, but to keep moving, but not just to keep moving with that positive, with that happiness, with that kindness. And how much you're going to get hit, we don't know, but can you get hit and still have love in your heart, still have compassion, still have empathy, and not fall into a place where you become bitter, or you become mean, or you become angry? How do you keep, and stay at that high elevation?
But let's say even if you do it for 30 minutes, not for 30 years. Like, lick your wounds. You're a human being. You get mad from time to time, even if you get afraid for it. But the whole thing is like moving to action, because that's what differentiates navigators. And I love that you use the word archetypes, which is really, that's what it is. It's archetypes. And this is my new talk, not AI, AAI. And they're like, what? What is AI? AI is awareness, action, impact.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
AAI. Because when we become aware, even with the branding that we talked about, you have, first of all, we have to become aware. Then we have to take action, change our brand, and then notice the impact that it has not only in your own personal life but the lives of others. Right. So that is a recipe for success, no matter where you are in your life, no matter what kind of work you do, no matter what your situation is in your personal and professional life. It's not AI. That's not it's AAI. And notice what happened. And it's the first time that I'm sharing this with you. I've never shared this publicly. This is the first time, but
Okay.
that is going to be one of my signatures talk. And I'm
Mm,
about to embark on a 10 keynote speaking tour in 4 countries. And trust me, this will be front and center in my talks, because first of all, it's catchy. It catches people's attention, but then it's actually true. If I'm not, unless I'm aware, I'm not going to change anything. When I do become aware, what's the next step? Awareness is not enough, by the way. Take action. That's the second A. And then once you take action, what's the impact that it has on you and those around you? And that is a recipe for success.
absolutely. And that's also, marrying the laws of the universe, because you can hope and wish and pray. But if you don't take action on those hopes and wishes and prayers, they will only be potential. They will never manifest into anything past potential, which is also interesting because that goes back to your observer archetype that says you sit there and you watch it, watch life go by because you don't have the courage, I would say, to take action on your dream, or take
There are a
action.
lot of people that do that. They go through life and they're like passive, and they observe. They get jealous at other people's successes sometimes. That's how you kind of know. Um, they get resentful that good things aren't happening to them, and they're like, and then they flip back to the victim mode, or they get mad or whatever. So those three archetypes are related one with another.
Yeah.
Um, but once you have awareness and you take actions, navigators take it. They navigate. You know, they have a positive attitude. By the way, they have a big picture perspective, which means you pull back the lenses because we can drown in 2 inches of water. But if you pull back the lens and say, again, why is this happening for me? And we get curious rather than judgmental, and we get the answer and then act upon that answer, then the whole trajectory of your life changes. The last thing that navigators do is they perform acts of kindness on a daily basis. They're acting, and the impact, I call that, like with kindness, everybody wins. And it's the four wins. It's a win, 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 win. The first two
Hmm.
wins are easy. The receiver wins, obviously. Now with neuroscience, we know that the giver wins too,
Hmm.
because when we give, again, the greatest drug dealer on the planet, which is the human brain, starts releasing those beautiful hormones into our system that stay there for 24 hours. That's the second win. The third win is the interaction between those two people. It could be you and a homeless person at a stoplight. When you roll down the window and you offer them something, and all they can offer back is a smile and say thank you and God bless you, that is a win right there. It could be 30 seconds. And the fourth win is the witnesses of acts of kindness, who then get inspired as a result of that, say, wow, look what Angelique just did. And they get inspired and they go out and perform acts of kindness themselves. So that's the fourth win. And that's the impact. Again, AAI, right?
Yeah, and everything has that impact. Everything has a ripple effect on both sides of the polarity spectrum. So, to your point in choosing, yes, sure, you could be upset for a little while, but get up, go do an act of kindness. You and I, when we were on your show, we talked about my kindness bombs, where I terrified people on the street. But yeah,
Did I see this right, or were you dancing with some woman the other day
oh, that
in the
was not
street?
yes, I was.
Where
That was
was you?
that is my best friend.
Okay.
And, yeah, she and I, you can't leave the 2 of us alone. If there's music playing, we will dance, or there was a couple of live bands, we started singing with them. I mean, we just and then, everybody around you, again, they don't know whether they wanna congratulate you, commend you, or commit you, but, they kinda get, they
That's
kinda
funny.
get into it. And, people are I actually had a woman send me a message about that video, and this made me a little bit sad but happy. She said, "I watched your video over and over again because I'm a woman who has issues with friendships with women, and
Wow.
I couldn't. I was watching the two of you, and I thought this seems so genuine. Like no no negative interactions, no competition or jealousy." And she said, "And I usually I I I gear away. I steer clear of female relationships, and I tend to do male." She said, "But this inspired me that I could hope that there's other women out there that I can be friends with." And we started going back and forth in this conversation, but it's amazing how many people feel so alone and feel like they are not heard or understood, or that something in this world is happening to them, and you said it before, that isn't happening to 8 billion other people, right? And one little thing that you do, even, sharing something that you've said at a talk, or sharing a dancing video, or whatever it is, you don't know who you're impacting with those things. You have no idea who you're inspiring, who you're touching, or who's getting the message that you needed to speak out somewhere because they so desperately had to hear it. That's where I believe the divine works through these channels. People demonize social media and online and stuff, and rightfully so, and in some situations, but there is a positive side,
Of course.
um, where you are able to touch more hearts and more souls, if that's your mission and that's your journey, through these platforms, regardless of what else is going on. If you stay on that single, minded focus, like, hey, I'm here to inspire, inform, entertain, whatever I have to do, or I'm here to spread kindness and happiness. And we'll also get into your film shortly. Um, I do think those platforms can be incredibly beneficial to touch more people and to have that impact in a more global way.
It's interesting that you use the word, divine. Before I give any talk, regardless of what the audience is, I say a very quick prayer. The prayer is always the same, which is God, Lord, universe, help me share those things that they need to hear. So I have an outline of my talk, but I'm not too tight, like I got to go down the list of all the things I need to talk about, to be open to the Spirit inspiring me. Countless times, because I've been doing this for 35 years. I have deviated a little bit off because that was the inspiration I got, the download that I got.
Yeah.
So I may go off to a little bit in a tangent, like, inevitably, after the talk, people come up, they want autographs, book signing, and all that stuff. They will come up and say, that thing that you talked about there, I felt like you were talking to me. Well, guess what? That thing was not part of my talk initially. And yet, so I've learned to trust that if the talk goes a little bit in a different direction, it's because somebody in the audience needs to hear that. It has happened so many times that initially I'm like, well, that's interesting. The first couple of times it happened, like, wow, that's kind of weird. No, it's not weird anymore. It's divine providence, I guess you could
Yeah,
call it.
well, you're being used as a vessel for service, and service,
Right.
right? And service comes in different ways. It comes in ways that we understand and ways that we don't. I go off on tangents sometimes, and I won't even remember what I
Or even
said.
what you said, right?
Yeah. And that's when you know too, you're like, okay, somebody is speaking through me. And I think that if if it's done in the way you're doing it, where it's positive and you're out there in the world spreading these messages of kindness, happiness, hope, and lifting people to their highest potential, I think that that is the very definition of service to others. And how we unify consciousness is by saying, you're not alone. I understand you. And here's some tools that you can use to get to this point as
Right.
well. Yeah.
Exactly. 100%.
And so on that note, you've now also used your platform and, your knowledge, et cetera, to link arms with the kindness folk at Kindness Worldwide. And you
We
guys
did.
have just coming off the tails of your film for such a time as this. And so why don't you
Yeah.
tell our audience a little bit about that experience?
And we're in the midst of like finalizing, and I think it's okay to say that in public. I mean, it's the truth. So for such a time as this is a movie, a documentary feature film of the story of kindness worldwide, which you and I are both ambassadors of. It's a story of Kevin Smith, a remarkable human being who, one day on a Good Friday 3 years ago, lost his wallet at the supermarket. And when he realized he had lost it, he was about to go back and get it. And this young woman actually returned it to him. And he didn't want to just say thank you. He wanted to do something above and beyond. Because typically, when like, here's $20, thanks so much, and all that stuff. And she said no. So he went out of his way to, in a kind way, to not only validate her, but anyway, he made a big deal out of it, much to her chagrin. I don't think she wanted the notoriety. But it got picked up by the local media anyway, and it went viral. Long story short, this small act of kindness created a global movement of kindness called Kindness Worldwide that Kevin and his brother-in-law Michael Binko created. And so we're basically shared that story in a movie, and then other stories of kindness and the impact that they have had. And we're really proud of this movie. Honestly, we're. Although I have to tell you, you do something, you get feedback. It was just shown at Podfest in Florida, actually, and we've gotten some feedback that's a little too long. So we're actually in the middle of re-editing it, and we've got like half an hour out of it to get quicker to the kindness stories that are truly impactful, which is sort of the second half of the movie. And I think we'll be done with that. The final cut. It's been a lot of final cuts. By next week, we have a drop that by next week. So the final cut will be, and I think it's going to move audiences even more. We've had a couple of private showings, and it's even at the length that it has been, it's impactful. But
Yeah.
we want to get to the juice quicker, and we're doing it. So
Yeah.
and now we're starting to send it to film festivals, and we want to do the shorter version because if it's under an hour and a half, there's the likelihood it's going to be better. It is better already. So we're
Yes.
excited. And again, impact. That's what it's all about.
That's great to hear.
And you know what? Part of it is one of the things that I love about, Randy McNeely, my partner,
Oh,
and
I love
Kevin.
Randy.
When we first got together, we made a pact as brothers and a commitment to one another. Park your ego at the door.
Yeah.
So no, we did, and it's been relatively flawless the whole process. You have personalities coming in. I want this, I want that, or whatever. Because of that, even editing hasn't been easy sometimes because you have like, well, I want to keep this, I want to, whatever. But we've been able to do it because there is no ego, and we just want this to be the best movie ever. Within the parameters that we have, and I think we're very close. It's a lot better. And but you have to be open to feedback, and not be defensive about it.
All of filmmaking and creative endeavors. Yes, and one of the things that you will learn, and you guys are already there, but most people learn, is this is a collaboration. There is no film that is ever made by one person alone. Yeah, sure, there's people who get on their iPhones and they're doing all these fabulous things, but these productions that you see out there, they are tons of people. My first short film was 150 people, and it was a
Wow, a short film, 150 people. Wow.
yeah, so it was a period piece. So I had huge sets pieces. I had, extras. I had the Michael O'Keefe, Margot Kidder. I had a ton of fabulous people in this production. And I had great producers, great DP, great everything. All of these people are coming together with their opinions and their thoughts. But if there was any part of it where somebody's ego was overriding somebody else's, the project fails.
Right.
So it's great that you say that, because when you come together in collaboration, a project will live the way it wants to live. Because just like everything else that is created, a project will tell you what it wants to be. And your job is to listen. And that is the one thing that I've always done with my writing, with my producing, with my films. I sit, and when I edit, I sit down and the first thing I say to the editing program is, okay, tell me what you want to say. And we start to move and we go through it. And sometimes me and the editor, and the movie will eventually start to tell itself. So I think this is the stage that you're in, where the movie is telling you where it wants to go so it can live the way it should be living out in the world. And that's a beautiful
Where
thing.
have you been all my life? Why haven't you told us that like a month ago? It would have saved us some grief, like, because I understand what you're saying right now
Yeah.
because we're farther along. I wish we had heard this like a couple of months ago because it would have
Well,
been,
I did
anyway,
talk.
it is what it is.
I had a conversation with Kevin, but it was before. So I think Kevin wasn't ready yet. He had
I
so
know.
much coming in. You get so much information, and it was before your first screening. And I will tell you this: it's very hard to hear that information before you put it out in the world, right? Because you're in love with it. You're like, this is it. This lady's opinion is her
Yeah,
opinion, right? It's
right.
only after. And I told Kevin, I said, come back to me after.
And the feedback has been pretty universal, Angelique. So it's the universal.
Yep.
Yes, the story is great, impactful. You got to cut it by at least half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. Get to the point basically quicker. So now we're all in agreement. So that's good. And now we're in the final edit. So I think we're yeah. And sometimes you do need to hear from other people too.
You do.
We could have consulted you early on though, because everything you're saying is exactly what's happened.
That's okay. When you guys do the next one, you could come find me.
Well, for sure. I'm going to talk to Kevin about that. I'm like, you won't believe what Angelique said. It's exactly what you described our process for the last two months.
Yeah, and it's great because that's how you know you're on the right track.
And how else can we learn? We had to learn. That's how you learn.
You
we
do.
didn't know.
And you know what? It's always good. And I say this with, fledgling filmmakers who come to me, and 9 times out of 10, they'll come back a few months later, but they usually run away after I give them my opinion the first time. And they run away because we all have an idea in our head. Maybe that's wrong, or, maybe mine is going to be different. Maybe blah, blah. You've got to go with that, because in the off chance that yours is different, you have to always trust that what you were given is the right thing. I didn't do that the first time around, and I ended up, I want to say paying for it because that's a little dramatic, but I ended up not making the movie I set out to make. And it was Margot Kidder who said to me, and I quote, "God damn it, Angie, You are the creator. You're the one who has to tell all these people what this story is. Don't let them talk you out of it. But I was new and I didn't think I knew best and I didn't trust my own instincts. I would have never gotten to where I was if that didn't happen to me. So
Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve. I mean, absolutely, and I'm sure the next movie we make, we're gonna have, we're gonna lean into our experience a little bit, and yeah, but it all works out. I love what you said, that the film will talk to you, will tell
Yeah.
you where it needs to go. That's fascinating.
It'll tell you a lot of things. I mean, if you really sit with it, it'll tell you when the pacing is off. It'll tell you when you need to cut something. It'll tell you that this doesn't fit, this doesn't fit. And no matter what you do, you try to make things work.
You know something? I love you, and I love what you share, because I like learning new things. So for me, like I get a high, like a natural high when I learn something new. I feel like I learned something new today from you, which is like, no, no, I did. It shifts your perspective a little bit. It's like you put words into our experience. Maybe that's the best way to say it.
Yeah,
You put words and an explanation to what our experience has been. So that's very meaningful to me. Thank you. Like
of
really, like
course.
wow. Yeah, I know, but I didn't expect this to have this conversation, to walk away going, wow, that's why it happened. Why it happened. Now I understand.
Yes. And congratulations to you because you know what? It is not easy to set out to do something like this and to complete it and to see it through to the end and to continuously push it out there and prove it and get
Yeah.
behind it. And that's not easy for anybody. A lot of people, either, they love the idea of it, but they don't execute it. So this is something that's getting ready to come out into the world. It's like you guys are birthing a baby, you
It
know?
feels that way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's 100. I can't tell you how many times I have stuff, even with a script. Scripts still do the same thing. They will tell you, nope, this is not what I want to be. Nope. And no matter how hard. And then conversely, you'll find this too. The minute you hit that sweet spot, it's like boom, boom, boom,
It
boom, boom,
flows.
boom, boom.
Right. It
Yeah.
flows.
And
Yes.
you get chill. Your body's like, all right, I'm in it now. This is it. This is what it's going to be. So I'm glad you experienced this. This is wonderful, my friend.
Well, we did it live. This wasn't planned. I mean, this is great, actually, because I didn't expect this. This is awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I know you have so much happening. I mean, my goodness, you are all over the place, right? It's like, where in the world is Elia? So how can people connect with you and find you?
Can I share something before we do that? Well, yeah, LinkedIn is the best way to do it, by far. dreliagourgouris.com, my website, my speaker website. So it's funny you should say that, because since the pandemic, like billions of other people, actually, was a time of reflection, a deep reflection. And I kind of changed my life radically. So my wife and I are now spending at least 4 to 5 months in Greece/Europe every year. I have a home there by the water and so on. And so people are very confused, like, so whether they're friends or extended family or client, whatever. So Ilya, what is the story with you? Are you retired? Are you semi-retired? Or are you still working? And my answer is none of the above. And they're like, what? It's got to be one of the three. I'm like, none of the above. I'm contributing.
Hmm.
And as long as I'm contributing, I'm going to continue to contribute to this world. And when it's time for me to stop contributing, then it's time for me to move on to the other side and move on to the next phase of existence.
I love that.
So now the question is, how are you, the generic, you, not just you, Angelique, but the generic, how are you contributing to this world? Are you contributing with love and kindness and compassion and forgiveness and gratitude? Or are you contributing to the toxicity of this world? Right?
Yeah.
And all the
Right.
other things that go with it. So if you're doing the first, keep doing it and amplify it.
Yeah.
But if you're doing the second, perhaps it's a good time to reflect and say, is this how I want to continue living my life, where I contribute with anger or venom or bullying or whatever the case may be? Is this how I want to live the rest of my life? Because that's not a happy life.
No.
I have never met a happy bully. That's not a joke, by the way. No, it's true. And I'm actually, think about it, right? If you're bullying somebody, that's because you're unhappy. And I taught my kids to say that to kids that were bullying them. I'm like, don't address them, don't get defensive again, don't get into a fight. Just ask them, why are you so unhappy?
That's great. I'm going to tell my son. My son's dealing with some of that.
But
Yeah.
no, because the bully will like, two things will happen. Either like they're going to get even more mad,
Yeah.
which proves the point. You're going to say, what do you mean? What makes you think I'm unhappy? And here's the
Yeah.
answer. Because only unhappy people mistreat others. Happy people are helpful, they're encouraging, they're loving, they're kind. So the way you treat others, the way you're treating me right now, that gives me a clue as to what's happening with you. You're a very unhappy kid. Boom. Because either they'll walk away with you because now you've bypassed all their defenses and you've hit him straight at heart, or they'll get even more mad, which like, see, you just proved my point. Happy
Right.
people don't. So
Right.
you get him either way. And I talked that to my kids when they were young, and it worked because bullies left them. They left him alone after that because they knew that they were unhappy. So they're like, so all of a sudden, my kids were not safe, emotionally safe for the bully to bully them
Right.
because they got called out. And I've taught that in schools. I mean, this is just like, right. So my point being, and it isn't just for kids. If you're misbehaving, if you're mistreating other people, take a look in the mirror because you're one unhappy human being. Happy people have never bullied anybody or hurt anybody.
It's funny that you say that because, oh gosh, now it's going to get me going on a tangent. But, as adults, we deal with, and women too, especially, we deal with the gossips and we deal with those people that are, yeah. And I say this all the time, and they get mad at me when I find out, like, a woman, for example, has been talking about me or whatever, and I cut them off. I just, goodbye. And they don't know why. And it's always, well, I don't understand her because and I say this all the time to my husband, this must be a desperately unhappy person because why would you spend your time trying to tear down another person, talking about another person's misfortune, trying to highlight bad things about people or highlight the negatives about people? What does that actually give you? You must be a horribly, unhappy person, or you must not really see yourself through the eyes of love because somebody who's deeply loving is not going to go out and
Right.
purposely try to harm somebody else. So
Exactly.
your point is so well made for both adults and children. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's why we have to spread all this kindness in the world. We have to change the consciousness. And that's the goal.
I'd love to connect with your audience. I'm glad that you and I are both ambassadors for kindness worldwide, and I'm heading off to Greece. That's one of the 4 countries that I'll be speaking at, and spread more kindness to them as well.
Yes. Well, we are so happy to have you here, and thank you for coming on and sharing your heart, your story, and your soul with us, and all the beautiful things that you're contributing to the world. And we look forward to keeping up with you and seeing where in the world you are next.
And thank you for teaching me. I almost don't want to say to Kevin or Randy or Derek or Michael, I hope there's a way that you can share with them what you shared with me because you were more eloquent about it and you know it. I got what you're saying, but I can't quite put your words to them. So at some point, it would be great if you could share that with them.
Yeah, well, we can show them our episode too.
There you go. Like, listen to this because that's exactly what happened. And you're living like a sage or like a high priest in Delphi. How did you know that? She knew exactly our process, exactly what happened. So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good, of course.
It's so good. Well, you made my day because anytime I learn something new, I'm like I'm on a high right now. It's great.
Oh, that's the best way we want to. We leave on the high. That's the best compliment
We
of the
do.
day. Thank you so much for joining me on Call Cut with Angelique. New episodes drop every Friday. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, share with your friends. And remember, folks, no matter what life gives you, you must always keep shining.